Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys. Tuesday, May 20th. We're back after a couple of days off. A little rest, feeling refreshed, and ready for the NHL Conference Finals. The Final Four has arrived. It's Florida, Carolina, Edmonton, and Dallas. The four teams alive in the chase for Lord Stanley this year, and excited for these series to begin. We'll basically talk about, obviously, Game 1 specifically in the Eastern Conference Final, which gets underway tonight, Florida, Carolina. We'll also, of course, do overall series previews and series bets that we've got. And I don't have many, quite honestly, this round in the conference finals, but I do have a couple. We'll mention them. And we will also start the show in just a moment with looking back on the two games that we saw over the weekend with Dallas and Florida advancing. But first, we want to mention that because we didn't have a show on Sunday and we didn't have a show on Monday, we couldn't wait till today to make it official, just a day before. We want to give people time to plan their schedule, around it and be available if possible. But we did make the announcement of our two betcasts, and we have two of them coming up this week. We've got a Western Conference Final Game 1 betcast tomorrow for Edmonton and Dallas, which will be Patreon exclusive for the West Final. Game 1, Edmonton, Dallas. That one will be tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, and that one is Patreon exclusive. And as we mentioned last week on the show, that we would be having one free betcast open to the public this month, and it would be this week, and it will be for Thursday night when we join you for Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Final between the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes. So again, make sure you check it out. Join us. Make sure you become a Patreon member if you're not already for the betcast coming up on Wednesday. I'll just make sure we get the graphic up on the screen here in just a moment. But there we have it. There we have it. Wednesday, May 21, Western Conference Final Game 1. Edmonton, Dallas, tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, Patreon exclusive. So you must be a Patreon member to join us for that one. Tomorrow night, Oilers and Stars. And then Thursday, May 22nd, Game 2, Eastern Conference Final, Florida, Carolina. That one will be free for all, open to the public. You will not need to be Patreon member for that one. So two betcasts this week. And we're down to that time of year where with the one betcast and the standalone game and just the one game means there'll be shorter betcasts. No more 4, 5, 6 hour betcasts now. Just a nice little 2.5, 3 hour presentation for you during the games. So looking forward to them. Again, we're rested, refreshed, and ready for the conference finals. Excited about it. Game 1 betcast, Patreon exclusive tomorrow night for Edmonton, Dallas in the West. And then the free-for-all betcast Thursday night for Eastern Conference Final Game 2, Florida and Carolina. And again, make sure you become a Patreon member to join us for the Wednesday night betcast tomorrow night for Oilers Stars, $10 per month, patreon.com/iceguys. All right, we're going to rip through the weekend. There's not really much to add, and we want to get to the stuff that's about to come. But I will just say about the weekend for me, we have to start with Mark Scheifele. I think he deserves the lead story because what he went through this weekend, it's gut-wrenching. It's almost impossible to think what's racing through his mind, when he is planning essentially to play a game that he needs to win and his team needs to win to save their season. And he gets the awful news from back home that his dad, Brad Scheifele, has passed away. I can only imagine how he was feeling. And obviously the team decided, this is Mark's decision as to what to do, whether to play or not. He obviously made the decision, I am going to play. This is what my father would want me to do. And obviously it was quite the gesture to find a way to have the fortitude and the strength mentally and emotionally, for that matter, to play that game in spite of losing, one of your parents, in this case his dad. It's just an incredible show of guts, fortitude, strength, And it also shows you probably what kind of a nice camaraderie the Jets have, because they were right there with him. He felt like this was his second family. To be away from your family in the immediate aftermath of losing your mother or father like that, it's not easy. But he obviously felt, you know what, this is kind of like a family to me too. That's how close we are as a group, this Winnipeg Jets team, that he felt it was the right thing to do for me to be with them and also to play this game. And Brad Scheifele was a hockey guy through and through, a hockey dad through and through. And I think definitely that factored in, that he'd want me to play in a game of this magnitude where we're trying to stay alive. And of course, you had the magical moment in Game 6 against Dallas Saturday night, where he gets the Winnipeg Jets on the board and gets them not only on the board, but the first goal of the game against Dallas on Saturday night. Is just a great moment. It ended up being the only goal Winnipeg scored in that game, but what a moment it was for him to get it. And it was and obviously Dallas won the game. Credit to them. Thomas Harley, power play goal in overtime. Can't say enough about what he's done for that team this year. I think he's established himself as a legit, number one defenseman, number one caliber defenseman in this league, and gives Dallas the overtime win. But then you see in the handshake line, one of the best handshake lines I've ever seen. And usually I reserve that for the Stanley Cup final, when a team has won the cup. That's the best handshake line you'll see. I think outside of a Stanley Cup final handshake line, that is as good as I've seen Saturday night in Dallas, where every Jets player and coach, or just every Stars player and coach, is giving Mark Scheifele in the handshake line a little extra. We're here for you. We sympathize with you. Credit to you for finding a way to play. I know Peter DeBoer, the head coach of the Dallas Stars, and Mark Scheifele have a Kitchener, Ontario connection, because they're both from that area. And it was just great to see everyone just giving Mark Scheifele a, hey, keep your chin up, keep your head up, man. You're going to be okay. You're going to get through this, even as painful and agonizing as it is. And then you factor in, too, the song choice, Nothing Else Matters by Metallica, from this. I can't say enough good things about this Dallas Stars DJ that makes the song choices for the games at AAP. That guy, I'd hire him. If I had a choice to handpick one DJ from around the league, he'd be up there. 100%. With that playing in the background, that classic, hit from Metallica, while the handshake line is going, goosebumps. That would be the word, goosebumps. It's definitely, that's how I felt. As for the game, we're not going to go into Winnipeg and what they did wrong. It's not the right time to do it. I think the focus should be what that team showed in a positive, despite losing Game 6 on Saturday night. And that's a hell of an effort. Probably their best road game, and probably Connor Hellebuck's best road game under trying circumstances. An incredible devastation for their teammate, Mark Scheifele, with the passing of his dad the night before the game. And for them to play that hard and that come together like that, Mark Scheifele to even play at all, just great show all around by Mark Scheifele and the Winnipeg Jets. And Dallas Stars obviously onto the Western Conference Final. But Alex, I wanted to make sure that when I recapped Saturday night, I put the focus on Mark Scheifele, because to me, that's where it should be.
No, absolutely. And like you said, for me, watching that game, it was truly a roller coaster of emotions. I said it to you guys in the chat. That's the most emotional I've ever been watching a hockey game that didn't involve the Chicago Blackhawks and the Chicago Wolves, because of not only just those circumstances. That's always just tough to see when you got a guy who had a loss like that to play through, and you admire the strength to be able to do that. I know I wouldn't be able to do that. I know for certain I would not be able to do what Mark Scheifele did, and then to score a goal in that game. And, it's hard to root against a situation like that. You really would never want to do that. But I had to be in that situation personally, because my finances were tied to Dallas winning that game and closing out on a huge series bet. And you were the first person I told about it. And that was the reason that I have to give you and give the show credit, because I brought up in Game 7 with Winnipeg and St. Louis, and I said, if Winnipeg wins this series, with how bad Hellebuck had been on the road, I mentioned the idea of floating around with Eric Comrie, and of course, we said, well, that's not going to happen. And that's when the bell clicked of, okay, I need to bet the series bet exactly how I felt it would go. And to hit that now, the second time I've ever done that in my life, It's a nerve-wracking thing to have and to not, be in a position to hedge off of. But to have that emotion and that elation, but it was obviously muted by, like I said, seeing the handshake line and then the fact that Scheifele was the one who took the penalty, and that, like I said, that image of Lowry going to get him out of the penalty box is something that I won't forget for a very long time. That's just got to be the absolute just crux of pain in that moment, and he played his ass off. Like I said, that whole team played their ass off. This was the best road effort of the last 3-4 weeks for them by sure, and still fall short in that is certainly tough. They played their asses off in that series, and they just needed a little bit more balance. And Dallas had that balance. We're seeing Dallas growing over time now, getting Heiskanen back, Robinson back. Just getting all these guys now and getting their full complement of players back and all playing well at the same time. This looks like one of those teams that can go on a hot run. We've said this all year, and they're finally putting it together at the right time.
Yeah, no doubt. It's obviously a great series by Dallas. And again, for Winnipeg, they'll be mowing the road, struggles throughout the playoffs. They went 0-6 you just can't win, in the Stanley Cup playoffs going 0-6 on the road. And that's exactly obviously what we saw from them there, but still a solid season all around for the Jets, and like I said, for Dallas, great job, and on they go. And I'll say one thing about Adam Lowry. That guy is one hell of a captain. One hell of a captain. I mean, and you could see in the press conference, that was hard to watch too, Adam Lowry. Near tears talking about we just one kill. We just needed to get that kill for Mark Scheifele, who took that penalty, which ended up being the penalty that Dallas scored the overtime power play goal on and couldn't get it. But credit to Dallas, and even in defeat, credit to the Winnipeg Jets and Mark Scheifele. That's stuff that you love to see, quite honestly, and certainly our thoughts and well wishes to the Scheifele family. Now, in a less, impressive, I guess, display than the Winnipeg Jets, we had the Toronto Maple Leafs on Sunday night against the Florida Panthers. And, we intimated at it that last week on this show, it would be just the classic Toronto Maple Leafs thing to do to this tortured fan base, to blow Game 5 and be just as horrific and pathetic as they were in Game 5. Then all of a sudden come back and play one of the games they've played all season in Game 6, and then go back to just ripping your heart out and being just as pathetic again in front of a dead, sterile Scotiabank Arena for Game 7 as they were in Game 5. And that's exactly what they fucking did. And can't even say I'm shocked by that. It's the same song and dance with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I remember, and it's been certainly been posted the last couple of days since Toronto got knocked out by Florida. The Hockey News front page from 2016 or 17, probably right around when we started this show, talking about the future of the Toronto Maple Leafs and this golden era that was about to begin with all these guys they got, in the draft, and Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and William Nylander, and this decade of dominance that was coming from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that it was going to be not just they were going to for sure finally end the curse and win a Stanley Cup, but they said on the front page multiple cups, probably multiple Stanley Cups are on the way for the Toronto Maple Leafs here, with Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and William Nylander on the front page. And then, which is partially why I don't pay much attention to the Hockey News these days. I really don't read it or pay attention to it like I did in the 90s. I was obsessed with it when I was a young kid. And look, we read a lot more things back then than we do now too. That's part of it. I mean, publications are, dying a slow, painful death right now. But nevertheless, that was just hilarious to see that. Forget one cup. Forget one Stanley Cup with this score. One conference final. Couldn't even do that. Not one conference final for these guys. Couldn't even do that. And you want to know why? Watch the way this collective played in Game 5 and especially in Game 7. What did Nylander do in Game 7? Dick all. That's it. What did Mitch Marner do in Game 7? Oh, I did notice one thing he did. He yelled at his teammates on the bench, wake the fuck up. A guy that had zero shots on goal at the time. Zero. None. As in zilch. He decided, yeah, I'm gonna yell at my teammates at that time. And then Austin Matthews. And Austin Matthews got us thinking with that Game 6 goal through the wickets of Bobrovsky, which was the game-winning goal to get them rolling in that game, that look out now. Maybe Austin Matthews, the beast, has awoken. No, the beast went back into fucking hibernation in Game 7. And that's the captain of the team that did that the other night. So, that collective has come up so small. So there's a reason I'm wearing this today. Can't find him with a telescope shirt. Why? Because none of them showed up. You could never find Austin Matthews with a telescope in a clinching game. You could never find Mitch Marner with a telescope in a clinching game. You could never find William Nylander with a telescope in a clinching game. Never. And those guys, and the mentality, the small, lame, soft, just mentality of this group there, that as soon as Seth Jones, and look, Game 7 started with Florida getting dominated, or Florida dominating Toronto, I should say, in the first 10 minutes, where it's just basically that. Remember how well they started Game 6? It's like Game 7, It was back to Game 5 start again. And they're damn lucky it wasn't 1 or 2-0 Florida after the first 10 minutes. They were hemmed in their zone. Florida brought a wave of relentless forecheck that Toronto was powerless to do anything about. Powerless. And they were fortunate they got out of that first 10 minutes. And then they actually played a really nice last 10 minutes of the period. They had a couple of great chances. Now, it's unfortunate that the guys that had the breakaways were Scott Lawton and Steven Lorentz. Can I see Matthews get one? Break. How about Nylander? How about Marner get a breakaway? Unfortunately, it was your pluggers, your meat grinders, that were getting those chances shorthand or with breakaways on Bobrovsky. And that's why it's hard for guys to finish like that one-on-one with a winning goaltender, a cup champion goaltender like Sergei Bobrovsky. But they had their chances. They had a big penalty kill, at the end of the first period. And to get out of that period scoreless at that moment in time, it was the one moment in time in this game where I thought, things are actually looking pretty good for Toronto. They had that awful start. They survived it. But somehow they got out of the period scoreless somehow. But then the second period, and I've tried to defend Morgan Riley, but it's just a horrible pinch there. Seth Jones takes advantage of it, 2-on-1. And it's 1-0 there for Florida. And the moment it got to 1-0, you could see it. The panic set in. They stopped skating. They stopped moving their feet. They were losing every puck battle. The shift after shift after shift after that 1-0 goal. No pushback. Woe is me attitude, which has crippled this franchise for 10 years. As soon as something bad happens, that's it. We shut down. We give in. That's it. And that was the moment and then, of course, it became 2-0 not long after. And then the 3-0 goal right after that, bad rebound control, no one picking up the second chance. And you could tell it was just losing all those puck battles. And by the time it got to 3-0, it felt over. Because good luck against a team that defends like Florida does, and with a goaltender like Sergei Bobrovsky coming back from that kind of deficit. And it looked hopeless. But then in the third period, when it was 3-0 Florida, Max Domi for our bargain bin special. So I thank Toronto for that. They did the one thing I was hoping for. If they were going to lose that game, I said, boy, it would be nice for at least Max Domi to score a goal, because I took him plus 800, used it as bargain bin special on Sunday. And sure enough, he did right through the 5-hole. It's actually not a great goal for Bobrovsky. But at 3-1 early in the third, it's like, wait a minute. Well, there's still about 17 minutes left. You're only down 2. If you get the next one, there is definitely a chance for you here. And such a Leaf thing. Just going back to how in Game 6 they dragged everyone back into believing they could win this series again. 3-1 goal, they kind of maybe got some people believing, hey, maybe this isn't over yet. And they couldn't even let the fans think that for more than 1 fucking minute. Because 1 minute later, there's the deflection goal by Kulmint Luostarinen, 4-1, and game over, series over, season over. Right at that moment. And 4-1 Florida. And then, of course, they added the 5-1 goal right off the draw from Reinhart. And then salt on the wound, as if they needed to see this. 6-1, and it's Brad Marchand into the empty net. The guy that's single-handedly almost killed this franchise in the postseason for the last decade. He's never lost a Game 7 against the Leafs, and he scores that goal. And it was ugly scenes in the third period in the arena. There were beers thrown on the ice, pop thrown on the ice, multiple jerseys thrown on the ice, people leaving with about 12 minutes to go in the third period. It was an ugly scene, and it was the mob. We are the angry mob. Who did that song, by the way? We are the angry mob.
Kaiser Chiefs.
That's it. The angry mob spoke. We are done with this collective. There'd better be changes. There'd better be a split with this core group, because you cannot bring back this exact same team next year. It would be fucking lunacy to do it. Lunacy. And I think that's where we're at right now. And I think it's going to head that way. I think Mitch Marner's out. He even said in his post game earlier today that, I loved my time. He didn't say I love it here. He said I loved my time here. Loved it here. Not love it here. Loved it here. He's done. He's gone. He ain't coming back. And I think if you're the Leafs, you don't want him back. Go be invisible in the playoffs somewhere else, guy. Thank you. Appreciate it. Go do your little figure skating routine somewhere else. Don't do it here in Toronto anymore, because we're sick of watching it. We're sick of the bullshit. Austin Matthews. He has now gotten to the point where he is going to get my wrath almost as much now as Marner. And Marner was the biggest person to blame for me in years past. But to hear Austin Matthews say this nonsense in the post game, I couldn't believe I heard this. He actually said, and the passengers comment, I am the passenger. That should be the new theme song for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Iggy Pop, the passenger. To say we had too many passengers, you're a fucking passenger, man. The captain. What the hell did you do in Game 7? You're talking about how everyone else was passengers. You were a fucking passenger, man. But then the one that was even more, no one's talking about this enough. He said everyone's focusing on the passenger comment. You know what he said, too, after the game? Against a team that's won a cup, been to the final 2 years in a row, and a Leafs team that hasn't done anything in the postseason. Haven't even gotten past the second round. And do you know what Austin Matthews said after that loss in Game 7 Sunday night? He said they were hungrier than us to start the game. What a fucking indictment that is, again, of your team. I think I said this about Mitch Marner a few years ago after a Montreal loss in Game 6. We weren't ready to play. That was horrific. That's just a horrible quote to have to hear that and listen to that and stomach that if you're a Leaf fan. And then to hear Austin Matthews say, essentially, that they were hungrier than us. You're talking about this team that's won a cup already, that's been to the final 2 years ago, and you haven't done jack shit in the postseason besides a couple of first-round wins in 10 years, and they were somehow hungrier than you to start that game. They don't hate to lose enough. They don't.
Yep.
They simply don't. It doesn't rip them apart enough, because the effort they're willing to give to change the result so that they don't feel the pain of losing, they're not willing to give it. They are not willing to give it. And there's going to be some changes. I think Marner's gone. I think Tavares is only back if he takes a third-line role, down the lineup. I don't think he's a second-line center next year. I think he's got to go down the line. He's got to take a pay cut too. Only then, I think, is he back. I think Shanahan's got to be gone. The Shanahan plan has failed. It's like the Sixers with with what they were selling all those years. It failed with Embiid and all those guys. Trust the process. That's it. That was the one with the Sixers. Well, this process is finished too. Shanahan plan has gone down the drain. And he is the guy that's overseen all of this. He's the guy that's blocked a Mitch Marner trade in the past. He's a guy that's hung on to this core for 10 years, just dreaming of, imagining that things would be different, and they never have been. So, Shanahan's got to be out, in my opinion, and there's going to be some changes to the core. That's, I think, where we're at with the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. But just another disappointing loss. Now, is there some things to be, you played the champs, you played a hell of a team, but you were coming here to finally get over that hump. You have to beat phenomenal teams to get over the hump. That's just the way it is. People say, well, but they lost to the Florida Panthers. Who the fuck cares? You're trying to get over that. You've never been to a conference final with a group that people thought would win multiple cups. You're eventually going to play a former cup champion or a team that's had a lot of playoff success if you're going to reach your end goal. Find a way to fucking beat them and find a way to get it done. And once again, the Toronto Maple Leafs were not able to do that. Simple as that. Alex, your thoughts on Toronto specifically? We'll talk Florida, trust me, and when we talk Florida, Carolina, but specifically about Toronto, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
And it goes back to that old Ric Flair quote, to be the man, you got to beat the man. If you don't come prepared against the team that just fucking won the Stanley Cup, then how are you expecting to get through anybody else? Like I said, you had to bring your utmost A game and play this like a Stanley Cup final.
If I was a Leaf fan hearing that, they were hungrier than us to start that game. Unacceptable. And you cannot rationalize that. Not a chance.
No, not at all. And like I said, I'll give Leafs fans and team and everybody the benefit of the doubt, because the whole aura of that team and the series changed once Stolarz was out. Once Stolarz got hit in the back of the head and left that game, and we knew it was a concussion. It's funny that they come out and say now, he was out with a concussion. No fucking shit, he was out with a concussion. We all knew that. But once he was officially out of that, once he was officially out, that changed everything in the series. Because he was we could talk all day about the core four, okay, being up and down, because that's what they do, regular season and playoffs. But the X factor, what made this year different was Stolarz and how he was playing down the stretch. And so that does have to weigh a lot. I'm not saying that's a big excuse, but it's part of it. It's a huge part of it. And I feel like we aren't talking about that enough, because even if you won this series, that was probably going to be the glaring issue moving forward, was Wall, because Wall he's not Stolarz this year. And I don't know if we're going to see this from Stolarz. Hopefully we see him rise back to this level of goaltending next year once he's healthy and beyond, because it looks like he's progressing to be a top-tier goalie. And if that's the case, that's huge for the Leafs moving forward, because that was the issue holding you back for a lot of years. If you have that still solidified, you can fix the other forward parts moving forward. But that changed the complexion of this series. And then to have Marner, like you said, barking at his fucking teammates when he doesn't even have a shot on goal, it's like, you guys got to start looking at yourselves as well. It's total accountability. You can't just say, they were some guys were playing hard, others were. No, at the end of the day, you all collectively fucking sucked. And to lose 4 straight after having a 2-0 lead and have that momentum, and then not have any momentum or juice early in Game 7 when it's in your building, like you said, it's completely unacceptable. These guys, this is a group that simply will not do anything. And here's a fun fact: since the lockout, 2004, 2005, so we're talking 20 years, the Buffalo Sabres have actually won more series than the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that's a team that hasn't been in the playoffs in 14 fucking years. That is completely unacceptable. If you're a Leafs fan, you have every right to be disgusted, betrayed, bewildered, pick whatever word you want. But it's just, I don't know what's going to change. Like I said, okay, you get rid of Marner, you get rid of Tavares, or Tavares comes back with a restructured contract. But this is deeper than that. We've talked about numerous player changes, coaching changes, all kinds of shit. And it's just still the same old thing at the end of the day. At this point now, if you're looking to bet futures, there's no way you can look at anything Leafs preseason for the next however long until they figure this the fuck out. Like you just can't do it. You can't do it. This is an untrustworthy franchise, and they've been like this for a while. And I don't know what's going to change and when the change is going to happen.
It's just amazing. There's multiple GMs haven't changed it. Multiple head coaches now haven't changed it. Although I do legitimately like Berube. I actually do. I actually legitimately think he's better than Keefe and Babcock, the last two that have been here. Like I said, it's there's going to be some core changes. There's no question. You know what's unbelievable too about that Game 7 is how awful they were to start the game, Toronto. And yet they got out of that first, think about this, they got out of that first period still scoreless. That should have been like a life preserver for them. Like, hey, guys, let's wake the fuck up here in the first intermission, saying we dodged a bullet there. We dodged several bullets that we got out of that period scoreless. Let's bring it now. We can win this thing. We can win this damn game. Let's go, and let's pick it up. And then in the second period, they went right back to getting dominated. Right back to getting dominated. Again, by the Florida Panthers. And, of course, that's when they went up 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, and it was a game, set, match. at that point in time. So 17-5 shots on goal in the second period. And like I said, just another awful ending to a season in a big spot for Toronto. What is that, 0-6 now in Game 7s? They've never won a Game 7, this team. They've lost every single Game 7 that they've played with this core group, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Someone that was not totally shocked to see that happen, though, was the guy joining us now. Perlo, your thoughts on Florida advancing?
No, I wasn't shocked, of course. I might have been a little bit off there with the sweep and all that stuff that I had beforehand, but I had 5 units on Florida to win, and so I really wanted them to win. Where'd I go other than what you already said? The one thing that I may kind of disagree with, and I know I used to think this too, like the hate to lose thing. You can hate to lose, or you can love to win. And you can do one more than the other one if you want. I prefer now in my life to love to win more than I hate to lose. I just find it easier, or I try to anyways. I'm getting better at it. But if you don't believe you're capable of winning, it doesn't matter which one you do. I think the Leafs hate to lose. Did you see him at the end of this, when they were shaking hands? They looked like totally depressed bunch. They could barely lift their hand to shake everybody's hand, especially Matthews and stuff like that. And of course, Marchand has got this big smile on his face, patting them all on the back and everything on his way out. Freaking beautiful. But I think they just don't believe in themselves as a collective. And you can take a lot of reasons for that. My love for Sheldon Keefe, I think that's part of the reason for it. That it does take something in each individual to believe in themselves as a collective. And you brought it up really well, and I'm going to bring up the nuts. I call them the nuts, Peanut. Here we were doing a live Twitter Spaces, and as soon as Florida scored that goal, and I didn't have a bet on the game, so you know what? I had a little belief on the Leafs in Game 7 because I didn't bet on the game. I also already had Florida to win the series, so I didn't really need to add anything more into it. But I didn't bet on the game. But as soon as they scored that goal, Peanut goes like, -1.5 Florida Panthers. Let's do it right now. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it, because that is the problem. As soon as something happened, you brought it up because I was listening to you in the car. As soon as something like that happens, this team just stops believing in themselves. Maybe never did believe in themselves.
Stopped skating, stopped moving their feet, lost every battle immediately in the shifts after it got to 1-0. Immediately.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's what I don't know if they love to win or hate to lose more, but I do know that they don't think they're capable of winning. You got a Florida team, when they were down 2 in the first 2 games, you saw their interviews. They said that's a different Leafs team, and they said, but there was not one inclination in your mind that they didn't think they were winning that series. They believed they were fully capable of winning that series right from the beginning to the end. And that's the reason why they got a cup, is because they believe in themselves that they are capable, regardless of what goes on in the game, regardless of what's going on in the series at that time, they're capable of winning a series, and they're winning that game. Does it mean they're going to? No, but they do believe they're capable. So if you actually lose a series even, you still know you were capable of winning that. You can move on from that. But if you don't believe you're capable, you're not going to believe you're capable, even if you happen to win it. So that is what needs to change in Toronto, I believe. And I agree with you. I think if anybody can help them do that, Berube is a guy that can do it, because he sure did it in St. Louis. For a time span there, he came in and had those 2 guys believing they were capable. But for some reason, the individual players in that group, there's enough people that don't believe they're capable of doing it. So that's it took me a while to realize it. And I used to say they don't hate to lose as much, and I don't buy it anymore. I see the faces; they hate to lose. But you can hate to lose all you want, but if you don't believe you're capable of winning, all you're going to do is walk around hating losing. If you can love to win all you want, but if you don't believe you're capable, you're just never going to feel the actual winning because you don't believe you're capable of doing it. So choose one or the other, which way you want to be. But first thing you have to do is believe you're capable. You can be all the talent in the world, but if you don't have that belief, you're done. I think even Marner said something like that. We believed. I think he said that.
Yeah, right.
He said we believed.
That's what Brad Marchand said last night too. That was all they had to do was belief, and they did.
It was Marchand that said that. Yeah. So there you go.
It's brutal that the Leafs might lose Marner for nothing, because say what you will about the playoff invisibility of Marner and not producing in the biggest games. And I have someone, and I like Birdie, the guy on Twitter that came after me for saying Marner doesn't help you win in the playoffs, but he penalty kills. He did so many good things defensively, but he's not getting paid penalty kill money. He's not getting paid defensive forward money. He's getting paid to put the puck in the fucking net and produce points in the biggest games in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and he never fucking does. So stop with that nonsense. Him and anybody else that said that.
That's true.
But he's getting paid to produce points in the biggest games, and he never does.
To go further on that, as far as Marner, I'm on an island here. I think they should keep Marner. I'll tell you what, the big thing everybody gets mad about with what Marner did was his mistake he made in the defensive zone. And like you said, acting like a ballerina and all that. Those things are
skater in game 5, which was brutal. It's as bad as it gets, as bad as you'll ever see.
Those things are somewhat fixable. But what I'll tell you is the guy that definitely didn't make that mistake was Nylander.
Yeah.
Nylander would never make that mistake. You know why? Because he wouldn't be in the defensive zone. I'm sorry. I can't stand watching that guy.
He was awful in the last couple of games.
Cherry pick at the red line. How many times every time he's got a breakaway, he gets the puck where? At the red line, because he flew the zone 4 times, hoping that it got into the offensive zone. Yeah. He is like what Huberdeau was to Florida before they traded him to Calgary for Kachuk. The guy is you're never winning with a guy that if he's your best player on your team, you're never winning a cup. If it were me, I would have a serious talk with them, say, give me 4 teams. We got to get you out of here. Give me 4 teams, please, for the love of God. And
they just need a new mixture. They need a new mixture in the dressing room. This group of personalities is not meshing. And you can see it. They're yelling at each other on the bench. They did some of that crap last year in the playoffs too, sniping at each other on the bench. It's just time to get a new mix of people in there.
As a collective, they don't believe in each other as a group for whatever reason that is. And they've gone how many different ways now, and it hasn't worked. Something has to change. But that's what I personally would prefer to see happen.
But they still should have got something from Marner, either via trade or something, to let him walk in free agency and get nothing in return, because he is a spectacular regular season player, and the points he puts up, and he's gotten a lot better in terms of the defensive game, at least during the regular season with penalty kill and doing some of those little things. Like, he was great at that. And even in these playoffs, he was okay doing some of that stuff, certainly. But
Toronto in general actually had a really good penalty kill through that series. And they did play better than I've seen them play in that series. So it's not like all doom and gloom. Things can change, but
he's just got to find his offensive game at this time of year in the playoffs. The good news is that's going to be double-digit $1 million of cap space coming to Toronto. That's the one positive, is that they're going to be able to use the Marner money to make other improvements, hopefully, for the team. Now, you still should have gotten something back. You should have gotten the cap space and gotten draft picks or players or prospects in return. But at least you're going to have the cap space. But it does suck, for the Leafs, that they're probably going to lose him for nothing, because they could still trade him before July 1st. But he's not going to waive his no-move clause. He wants to test free agency. This guy was just held out for every dime he could get, trying to bleed this team dry. You think he's going to do you solid now after everything he's endured and all the criticism he's gotten, publicly? He's going to do you solid and waive his no-move clause now before July 1st? There's not a chance in hell that is happening. He is going to free agency. He is signing somewhere else, and the Leafs are going to get Bubkus for him. Yeah. Bubkus.
And I believe
that's where they're at.
So we'll see. I believe
the only solace you'll take is that you're going to get the $11 million in cap space. And 2 final points I will make before we move on to the conference finals is that think about where this series was. Game 3, 5 minutes into the first period of Game 3, Toronto had a 2-0 series lead, and they had a 2-0 lead in the first 5 minutes of Game 3.
Yeah.
And look where they are now. They went to overtime of Game 3. One shot away from a 3-0 series lead. A lead that, in my opinion, would absolutely, even for the Florida Panthers, I think they would not have come back from that. I can't believe for a second that Florida would have come back from 3-0 down had Toronto found a way to win Game 3 in overtime. Think about how close they were to going up 3-0 in this series, and now here we are, another second-round exit for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I will bring up briefly one final time, because this is an annual tradition on the Ice Guys show too, with the Leafs post-mortem after a season ends. The fan base. I get that they have a right to boo. I think booing Game 7 is fine. Boo all you want. Let your voices be heard. But the throwing of stuff on the ice, including the jerseys, that's a bunch of garbage, in my opinion, throwing the jerseys on the ice. And I'm seeing the Twitter videos. I'm seeing the social media videos. We saw this last year after they got knocked out.
Yep.
We saw it 2 years ago after they got knocked out. Throwing your jerseys in the garbage can, lighting them on fire and burning the jerseys. Declarations galore that I'm done with this team and I'm going to start cheering for another team. Bullshit, you are. Bullshit. And I think I said something. I know I've said something similar in years past. You're going to be there on October, whatever, 2025, and you're going to be cheering this team like you always fucking have. Nothing has changed. Stop the nonsense that you're going to become a Habs. Someone actually said they're going to become a Habs fan. You are such a fucking moron, man. There's not a chance in hell that is happening. Not a single friggin' chance that you're ever going to become a Habs fan. You're still going to be a Leafs fan, and any fan that's worth their salt is true with the team through good and bad. And yes, this has been bad. There's been a lot of bad. There's been a decade of optimism that has fallen short. But my gosh, if you're going to any kind of fan of this team, true fan, you ride it out. You stick with it. You're not declaring I'm going to be a Habs fan or a Penguins fan or whoever, or or Lightning fan, whatever. That's nonsense. Burning your jerseys, nonsense. Throwing them in the garbage can, nonsense. You want to boo? Great. You want to be pissed? Great. But if you're going to be a true fan of a team, Ticats are the longest drought in the CFL for a Grey Cup. Am I becoming an Argos fan? No. We don't want to. We're in a goddamn 9-team league, and we haven't won a Grey Cup since 1999. It's the longest drought in the CFL. Am I becoming an Argos fan? Am I trading in my season tickets for the Ticats, the team I've loved from day one? No. Am I burning Ticat jerseys? No. So don't do that shit. It's ridiculous. And every year I'm seeing it. You're not a true fan. You may think you are, but you're not. Right, Alex?
That's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And when Justin Bieber comes out and designs a blue and sparkly silver fucking jersey, y'all will be buying those just to replace the ones that you threw away and burned the last couple of years. So the same old shit. It's the same cycle. Same cycle with the fans, same cycle with the players, same cycle with the ownership. It's one big fucking shithole circle.
That's the one thing I'll say about Bailey. And Bailey's taken his punishment from the chat today. I see it, because he's a Leafs fan and all that. He's at least going to be a Leaf fan next year. I'm
right.
confident in that. That's the one thing I will respect about Bailey. He's going to be a Leaf fan next year. He's going to be a Leaf fan in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. I'm going to stick up for him with this one here. He's going to be a Leaf fan for life, good or bad, wins or losses. And I respect that. I respect that. That's the way it should be.
I got out early. I was a Leaf fan until I was 10 years old, but I got out early. But probably if I would have held on. And by the way, I had a lot of people say, well, you're just a Leafs hater. You're a Leafs hater. My dad actually he got diagnosed with cancer about a month and a half ago, and he is a huge Leafs fan. And I wanted, if it were to happen, I bet with my brain, not with my heart, but deep down, I wanted the Leafs to win for him. And I am not.
I respect all Leaf fans that stick with the team.
I'm not a Leafs hater at all. I think Toronto fans deserve it. Yeah. I know a lot of Toronto fans. They're wonderful. They're great. They're amazing. They're passionate. And like you said, they remain Leaf fans forever. Yeah. I mean, if there was ever any fans that don't bail on their team, usually it's Leafs fans. And those guys that threw the Leafs jerseys and did all that will be Leafs fans next year. They're just super passionate about it, and it really hurts them. They deep down get hurt by this, like seriously emotionally draining for maybe weeks after a loss like that over and over again. And it is tough to see if you have people close to you. It's tough to see. So no, I'm not a Leafs hater.
No, and like I said, it's I think it's one of the that's who I feel for. Bailey it does make a good point here. The Leaf fans that sucker the 19-year-olds. You're right. A lot of them are just the worst. The younger ones, the ones that are the boomers now, like the 40s and the 50s and the 60s is in age, that have really suffered a lot of torture and bad hockey and playoff shortcomings and playoff disappointments. Those are the ones I feel for, because it feels like they've been seeing this for 30, 40 years, 50 years even. But yeah, we should have known the moment Drake bet on the Leafs in Game 7. And the moment Bieber and Mrs. Bieber were there right behind the bench, giving the thumbs up to Mitchie and Austin and his boys there. You should have known it was over. It was all over for Toronto right at that moment, no doubt. You know what's not over, though? The Stanley Cup playoffs. It's over for Toronto, but it's not over for 4 teams. There are 4 teams still alive for the Stanley Cup. So we move on and talk conference finals. We'll do just a quick series thought overall of Florida, Carolina. Florida minus 130 series price here in the Eastern Conference Final here tonight. The Florida Panthers, again, they have shown us, and that Toronto series was a perfect example of it. We got to talk about that. Now we get to talk about Florida. Most of that recap of the Florida-Toronto series was about Toronto. It's time to now acknowledge Florida. The great job they did. 15 different Florida Panthers scored a goal against Toronto in that second. 15 different Panthers scored a goal. Jonah Gadjevich gets one of the key goals in Game 7. And that fourth line, which is a stroke of genius by Paul Maurice, putting them together, just a crash and bang line on your fourth line with Noshek, with Gadjevich, and Greer. And they just hit everything in sight. And I saw whenever that line was on the ice, you guys, they were targeting McCabe and Tanev, the shutdown defense for Toronto. And there's no doubt they left a lot of body blows on both of those guys throughout the season. And you could tell they were wearing Toronto down that line every time they were on the ice. Putting that line together was great. Just a crash and bang line. And they actually outplayed some of the Leafs offensively, believe it or not, that Florida fourth line. The third line, think about how strong the third and the fourth line were for Florida in that series. And the third line was just spectacular. It was the best line start to finish in the series. Brad Marchand, Anton Lundell, and Eetu Cool Mint Lusterinen. Start listening to the name, and not just because I give him that nickname because it sounds like Listerine. I'm talking about how good this guy is becoming for the Florida Panthers. And him on that line, Cool Mint Lusterinen with Anton Lundell and Brad Marchand has been absolutely outstanding. And they were great in that Toronto series. And the fact that Florida got better and stronger as the series went on, and 15 different Panthers scored a goal, and all of them, and one of them was not Matthew Tkachuk. Think about that. One of them was not Matthew Tkachuk. He didn't score a goal in this series, and I am convinced he is way less than 100%, and he is playing through something big. And he's just such a gamer that he is just going to find a way to power through it and keep playing. But you can clear he's hampered by it. But still, that the fact that Matthew Tkachuk, who is, let's be honest, he's carried Florida in series past and playoffs past and been the biggest factor in some games and series as to why they won, that they didn't get a goal from him in the second round and they still advanced. That tells you all you need to know right now about the Florida Panthers. Just insanity, that stat. No goals from Matthew Tkachuk. You would have said to me they win the series. Maybe not, and they still did. So that tells you how impressive it is. And we know the blue line, like I said, it's been solid. Forsling, we love. Ekblad. Seth Jones, let's give him credit. That's a hell of a series he played. Yeah, he made a couple mistakes, but what a Game 7 in particular he played for the Florida Panthers, making Bill Zito look very, very strong as far as picking him up, obviously, at the trade deadline. And look what they've gotten from Mikkola and, their depth defensemen as well. It's been solid. It's been impressive. There's just, like I said, there's just a lot to like right now with what we are seeing from this Florida Panthers team. And, the fact that they got through a series where they, were down 2-0 early and were able to battle back and find a way, just very impressive stuff from this group. And a dangerous team, no question about that. But they're playing a Carolina team here that I think from a defensive standpoint, who was playing better than Carolina showed for a majority of the New Jersey series and the Washington series? You talk about putting the anaconda chokehold and suffocation on you defensively. Man, did Carolina do that in both of these rounds? Here's what I question, though. Carolina took advantage of a battered, depleted Jersey team on the blue line and no Hughes, a Washington team that maybe some of elements of their team during the regular season, as glorious as it was for the Capitals, was fool's gold and maybe showed a little bit in the playoffs. Well, now you got a 4-line relentless forecheck coming your way. You got a blue line that's going to smash you into submission with every shift and pound your D. Slavin, look out. In particular. Brent Burns, look out. Shane Gostisbehere, look out. You're going to be hit at every single turn in this series by the Florida Panthers because they get what playoff series hockey is all about. It's pound the team into submission, wear them the fuck down physically in a 5, 6, 7 game series. Florida's mastered that. And Carolina is going to be in for much more physicality than either New Jersey or Washington showed in the first round. There is no question about that. Freddie Anderson, I can't say anything but great things about him so far. He's been awesome in these playoffs. Let's give him his credit. Frederik Andersen has been terrific and rock solid throughout this playoff run. But here comes the question marks again, and I still have them. He is going to face 4 lines of relentless forecheck. There is going to be traffic galore in front of Freddie Andersen. He is going to get run. He is going to get bumped. He is going to get, Florida will crash his crease, the likes of which New Jersey and Washington didn't get close to doing in the first 2 rounds. How will Freddie Andersen deal with that? That's one of the biggest questions to me in this series because I've seen a rattled Freddie Andersen when he's losing his confidence a little bit, and that's when Mr. Softy comes out and he gives up the goal that you cannot give up. And it's usually because the other team is getting under his skin. The other team is making life difficult for him. And the other team is finding ways to take his eyes away. And I think that is the question. And you have to think about it. Rich has brought it up, and I'm going to bring it up. We saw Stolarz get taken out by, not all Bennett, because he did take a puck to the mask before that. But part of it was the contact Bennett had on Stolarz, and he was gone for the rest of the series. What if there's a graze of Freddie Andersen in this series? What if one of Florida's players grazes Freddie Andersen, bumps him a little bit? You maybe gets hit into Freddie Andersen, but then they don't slow up because they, get that pound of flesh, make it look like they got pushed in and maybe not do enough to ease up and just hit Freddie Andersen in the crease, knock the net off. And we could be looking at, see you later, Freddie Andersen, your season's over because this guy is an injury waiting to happen. And if there's ever a team that's going to maybe take Freddie Andersen out in this series, it's Florida with that physical, relentless, go-to-the-net style. And that's what I would be fearful of for Freddie Andersen and the Hurricanes, is that some little collision, no matter how minor it might be, and we might be saying, hey, Freddie, we'll see you at training camp. I'm not kidding either. I'm not being funny. This is not me being funny. This is me being a realist. This could happen. That's how injury-riddled this guy has been. One little bump from Bennett or Tkachuk or you name it in the crease, and he's slow to get up, and he's feeling something, and he's got to be helped off the ice. We could be saying, see you next season, Freddie. That there is definitely possibility of that. And then if you have to go to Kochetkov, we know he didn't play great down the stretch. So how does Freddie deal with the relentless assault he's going to be under in this series as far as crashing the crease, getting in his kitchen, getting in his blue paint, as far as getting to the net, all the stuff that New Jersey and Washington did not do anything close to the level Florida will here in this round. That's going to be interesting. But what I do like in this series, with Florida coming off the 7 games, that's a tough turnaround for the Panthers. And it was still a tough series. I know Game 5 and Game 7 were blowouts, but it was still a very tough series for Florida against Toronto. No question about that. And I think Carolina, with the momentum they've got, with getting swept by Florida in the Eastern Conference Final 2 years ago, is going to come out with a major point to prove tonight. And I think this is Carolina's game 1 to win. And I am going to take the Carolina to win game 1 and Florida to win the series combo here. I think it's a great approach. I think Carolina wins tonight. I think Carolina wins game 1, but Florida, as they are so accustomed to doing, they put you through the physical ringer for up to 7 games. And I just don't know if Carolina's got the horses to step up to that. And the one thing I'll say about Carolina, Svechnikov has stepped up. You'll see the contributions from their blue line have been great. Stankoven, I think, is someone to watch out for in this series. There's no question. This is what they got him for. Taylor Hall, Martin Nuke-Stahl, we'll see what they can get from them. Jackson Blake, is someone to watch out for in this series because we know he's got that finishing ability. There's no doubt. But if I'm Slavin, Burns, Orlov, Walker, Gostisbehere, I need to keep my head on a swivel because they are going to pound that D like you can't fucking believe, Florida, because it's exactly what they did to Toronto. Just wearing them out over the course of 7 games. So I think, though, the rest does Carolina well. They're fresh. I think tonight they step up to that Florida style. But again, you worry that Florida wears them down like they do so many other teams as the series goes on. I have Florida in 7. I think Carolina pushes them, though, because I really like a lot of things I'm seeing from Carolina right now. I think this is a series that once again could go the distance. I think Carolina is in a better frame of mind and a better place right now to knock off Florida this year compared to 2 years ago, where I think they learned a few things from that sweep in the Eastern Conference Final. And I think Rod Brindamore might even be a better coach now than he was back then. But he's going up against a guy that's his equal, if not more, in Paul Maurice. So that's what makes this a great. And of course, the connection of Paul Maurice coach, Rod Brindamore player 23 years ago with the Carolina Hurricanes or whatever it was. So they get to go head to head in the playoffs once again. But like I said, Carolina to win game 1 and Florida to win the series. You can get that pretty much north of plus 300 everywhere, depending on the book. So that's my bet for this series. I don't want to take Florida to win the series on its own. I like Carolina to win game 1 and Florida to win the series. I'll go for the plus money rather than just take Florida to win the series. And by the way, as you see on the screen, Florida minus 130, the widely available series price to win this series. Alex, Eastern Conference Final, just overall series pick and thoughts, Panthers, Canes.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun series. I know somebody in chat, a couple people in chat were saying that this would be with a rematch of the last couple of years and how Carolina has no-showed the last couple of appearances in the conference final. I think this is going to be much different from what we saw in a couple of years ago. Like I said, Florida has the huge edge as far as physicality. Carolina plays that style, but Florida just does it a little bit better. And that's the thing. And Carolina has kind of mirrored their game, I think, throughout this season and certainly during the postseason, kind of how Florida's played the last couple of years. Like I said, they've been able to match speed, beat teams with speed. That's how they were able to beat a team like Washington. Be more physical, and they know they've gotten better at being responsibly physical. We talk about that all the time, especially in the playoffs. They can hit, not get themselves in penalty trouble. They don't escalate situations and, get caught in the middle of the scrums and be the guy that gets picked out and thrown in the penalty box. They're sneaky about it. And Florida, once again, they do that better as well. But both teams know how to get under a team's skin. And that's what I think is going to make this a great matchup. I'm right there with you. I think Carolina wins game 1, but I like Florida to win the series. It was the first bet that I grabbed. I grabbed that plus 310, also at FanDuel. I also have Florida 2-1 lead after 3 games, plus 130. I think we see a lot of zigzag effort. This is not one where I'm going with the correct series order. There was one I was looking at with Florida and winning it in 7, but that's something I just going to save lightning in a bottle for the one time hitting it last series. But I do think this goes back and forth. But ultimately, like I said, I think Florida, they're not afraid to play 6-game, 7-game series. Where other teams might want to look to, obviously, it seems like, okay, it's best to close out a team in 4 or 5. Like you said, they build up strength. They, plan, it seems like, to play these long, grueling series. They're built for that. And they're built, like I said, to wear teams down. We talk about it like it's the same theory we talk about in the overtime game, where the more physical team has the edge, the longer the overtime goes on. Well, Florida has that same kind of theory within the series. The longer it goes on, the stronger Florida gets, and the weaker usually their opponents are. So I like Florida in 7. So I will have something sprinkled Florida in 7. Check the Patreon page for the full rundown because I haven't bet everything just yet. But I did bet Florida. So Carolina to win game 1, Florida to win series plus 310, and Florida to have 2-1 lead after 3 games plus 130.
All right, good stuff indeed. That's really the only bet I've made. I'm not touching any 1, 2, 3, 4 goals in the series bets here because I think there's not going to be too many goals, except for perhaps tonight's game, which we'll get to in a moment, where that could be the exception. But overall in this series, I expect a lot more 2-1, 3-1, 3-2 hockey than I do 4-3, 5-4. That's where I'm at with that. We lost Bailey for a second, or not Bailey, Perlo, but we'll get him back in just a moment. But yeah, that's the approach for me with that. Let's turn to the Western Conference Final. This begins tomorrow night. Edmonton Oilers, Dallas Stars. I've got I thought the Carolina Washington series was not very entertaining. I've got hopes that Florida Carolina will be. And then one last thing to point out about that. Florida's relentless forecheck and how they can just pin you in your own zone. Toronto knows all about that. But Carolina has the antidote for that with a clean, crisp, quick breakout of the puck from their own zone.
Yes, they do.
That is a great chess match in this series. The Panthers' ability to just hem you in shift after shift versus Carolina's ability to stop the forecheck with a quick, crisp breakout and get out of the zone cleanly. Clean exit. That is going to be critical for Carolina, that which has been great in the first 2 rounds. Clean exits, not spending much time in the D zone. Can they replicate that? They're going to give themselves a chance to win this series if they can do that.
Yep. And let me add one thing to that. The team that has the cleanest passes in this series, now I'm not talking about just a bunch of cutesy 2-on-1s and cross ice passes. The team who passes cleanly throughout like I said, moving the puck up and down the ice wins the series.
Yeah. All right. Perlo is back. Perlo, Eastern Conference Final, Florida, Carolina.
No, I'll just start off by saying I have the same thing as you guys as far as Carolina to win and Florida to win the series. But I wanted to bring up a little bit of something and then I'll go on what I think about Carolina and Florida in general and how Carolina could win, Florida could win. But Marchand at the end of the Toronto game, at the end of the game, they were interviewing him, which was interesting because I don't think the Toronto media wanted to interview Marchand. Can you hear me all right?
Keep going. Yep.
Okay. So I don't think they wanted to. That was Marchand choosing to do that. And that's just awesome for Marchand. I think they wanted someone else because they'd already interviewed him before. And it was just, it's just, please don't let us have to talk to Marchand right now after everything he's done. But something was brought up there that I found very interesting. And this is what I love about the savvy teams like Florida. They asked him, what was the difference between the home game in Florida and this game on the road versus the Toronto Maple Leafs? And he said something I thought was awesome. And it took me a while to digest what he said. He said, when teams are at home or when we're at home, you have more distractions of taking care of family and taking care of wives and doing all of these things that can cause a distraction at home. So we feel very comfortable when we're on the road and we don't have those distractions anymore. Seems like a small little thing, but it's something that is very difficult to get across to the family and wives of players that when you're in the playoffs, leave us alone. And I'll tell you what, every wife and family member was watching that game, generally speaking. And every one of them heard what Marchand said at the end of that game. So without actually having to say so, and also doing it in a very nice way, he was telling the family members, let's leave our guys alone at home. Why? Because that is what this next series is going to be all about. They have to win at home in this series. Carolina is an incredible home team. They can't let Carolina win one at home. And I think in Marchand's own little way, he was kind of giving a nudge to the player and giving a little bit of fuel to his players that they can go home and say, did you happen to hear what Marshy said at the end of that, guys? I love you guys and everything, but right now, unless it's an emergency, can we just not do anything when I'm home? Can we just put everything aside till whatever we have to do in as many situations as it is logical to do so? And I think it might have happened, and he might have been saying that. I think there could have been things that he knew that happened in people's lives and what they did with their families that took away from them being able to win that game in Toronto. And he said that as a broadcast to all the families that are Florida Panthers families to say, come on, we got to do this now. We can't be losing at home. That's what I love about teams like Florida. These are savvy teams that know what it takes and know what you got to do in every situation in every way to be able to win a series. And it doesn't just take the players, it takes the families too. Okay, going to the series now. You got Tkachuk, who we know he's not well. He's not 100%, no doubt about that. I'm watching Reinhart. I'm not seeing the same Reinhart I saw last year either. I think there's something going on with Reinhart. And the last two games, Bennett wasn't doing all the things that Bennett normally does in a series as well. So I'm a little concerned about all of them as far as their health is concerned. And we have a Carolina team, like you said, that is rested. And you get that whole argument about rest over rust. I don't think a Brind'Amour team is going to be rusty going into this series. I'm canceling that right now. Maybe some teams will be, but I don't see it with Carolina here. What Florida is going to have to do in this series, as you brought up so well, is they have like 5 different ways they can beat you. Carolina, on the other hand, they basically have that man-on-man all over the ice system, and they kill you with 1,000 cuts. What Florida won't be able to do to Carolina is they won't be able to piss them off and take their heads out of the game. They're not going to be able to do. Carolina, it does not come back at you that way. The way they come back at you is what they do after the puck is dropped, and they're all over you constantly all the time. And they are going to be all over Florida, as much as they possibly can in this series. You said Florida's going to try to play that aggressive offensive game and get on Slavin and get on Burns and get on those guys and wear them down all through the series and all of that, if they can catch them. And that's what we had with Washington.
Well, Slavin's going to be targeted. There's no doubt. That fourth line, Gadjevich and them, and Maurice is keeping them together. They're going and hitting him every time they get that chance.
Absolutely, they're going to try to do that.
Slavin.
It's just a question of if they can catch them. Florida's not as fast as team as Carolina, but what Florida is savvy. And I think that is what puts Florida over the top here, is they can beat you in more ways than Carolina can beat Florida. They both play similar styles. It's probably going to be a low-scoring series. It's probably going to be a dogfight, no doubt about it. But when it comes right down to it, and Alex, I think, said it very well, Florida has more guys that can score than Carolina has guys that can score. They have more skill on that team. They have more playoff experience and ability. Like, they still have they won cups, and they have the ability to be able to beat you in any way. And there's another thing, and this was the biggest thing, is Florida doesn't get shook. Florida does not get shook. So you're not gonna beat them one game and they're gonna be scared the next game. All of these times, some of these times where we've said in Dallas series or other series where it's like all the pressure is going to be on them, so start taking the other team in the third. You don't say that about Florida. Florida doesn't get shook all the way through. I think Carolina is going to put up a hell of a battle here. This is going to be a great series. If you like hockey that maybe isn't as fast, and sometimes it will be, sometimes it won't be. It's going to be back and forth in a lot of ways. But in the end, I think Florida will take this down. And I didn't even consider the idea that I brought it up, whatever it takes Whatever it takes is the other thing with Florida. They will whatever it takes. And if that means running Anderson, like you said, is true. You only have to take his legs out one time, and then all of a sudden he's out. And if that happens,
it'll be like and it'll happen in a play like what happened with Bennett and Stolarz, where he's not swinging his elbow viciously at the guy, but he's going to graze him. He's going to contact him. Yeah. He's going to make sure he gets a piece of him, even if it's a smaller piece, and just impact the goalie in that kind of way. You're going to see that all series against Anderson. Yeah. There's no doubt.
If Carolina wins if Carolina wins a series, it's because they out-stamina Florida. That's my only concern. Yeah. They might out-stamina Florida.
Andrew G in the chat said it best. This is going to be smart hockey. It may not be the fastest hockey, but you're going to see, like it's going to be a chess battle. And that usually ends up being good hockey. Whether it's
so well, time and space will be at a premium. Yeah.
And that's not to say that every game is going to be 1-0, 2-1. Like I said, in game one, we're kind of expecting goals here. There's going to be times where we might see, like I said, if we're talking about Anderson being out, then that changes the deck on everything. That's why I'm not committed to any player props for the heading into this series. Any kind of 2 goals, 3 goals. Like I said, I'm not looking at anything player related pre-series. Everything will be on a game by game basis. But I think we're going to see 2 coaches who make great adjustments in between periods. And we're going to see a lot of just adaptability back and forth, and that's what's going to make this an interesting series. Even we'll see more 2-1, 3-2 excitement than we will, the slow plodding death of games that we saw from Carolina and Washington.
Yeah, I believe so.
I got a couple props here. I can do
them
now. I can do them later. One of them, I will say, I will be taking for sure. This is a sneaky good play. Noshik has had a shot on goal in every game in this playoffs except for one, and you can get him for to get one shot in every game in this series at plus 3,500. And all you have to do is hope he doesn't have that one. But I think it's worth the shot for $10.
Yeah,
that's true. If the numbers back it up, why not? Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't
disagree with that. Yep.
And he's a guy who's slotted in the lineup the entire postseason, right? He's not a guy who's been pulled in and out.
No,
he was out, and then he was put in the Toronto series, Game 3 by Maurice.
Okay, so that's the thing you may have to worry about.
Yeah,
but
I don't think we're seeing that I don't think we're seeing that in this series. No,
I don't see how he takes him out or alters that line at all with the impact they made on Toronto.
Right. No, that's just the only question I was wondering with when you look at a series play like that. But no, if that's the case, then that's a good one. That's solid, awesome. Solid value.
I don't see him being taken out. And the other ones are like I did take I took Ekblad for 2 goals. It is a really good price. I think there'll be a lot of
I think there'll be a lot of D shooting. I agree with that. It's not the first time I've heard someone say there'll be a lot of defenseman shots on goal. Yeah, just simple hockey, get pucks to the net. So you maybe look at Gostisbehere to have an offensive impact for Carolina because he's the guy that can.
Yeah, that was the other one. Gostisbehere for only 1 goal in the series is plus 110. I took it. I think he'll get 1 goal.
I think that makes sense. I think simple hockey, both teams don't mind playing that way as much, and especially Carolina, shot volume and just volume shooting, especially from the point, matters to them. And Florida can play that way too. You can see, Ekblad get pucks to the net, Mikkola get pucks to the net, Forsling get pucks to the net. Seth Jones, look what he was able to do. Obviously, score in Game 7. So defensemen getting involved in the offense. This is definitely one of those series. Yeah, I can see that happening. All right, Western Conference Final now. Edmonton minus 130 favorites in this series. Gosh. It pains me to pick anybody in this series because I could see it. Obviously, you can make strong cases for both. I think the case for Edmonton is the way they've come together. They're playing phenomenal hockey, both ends of the ice. And it's not all been on McDavid and Draisaitl offensively for them. Look at all the depth contributions they've had throughout. And a healthy Evander Kane. Look at what a difference that's made for Edmonton. Skinner, he's got his confidence back. Stuart Skinner looking great again after replacing an injured Calvin Pickard. His 4-7 in a playoff series track record is what now 12-1, 940 save percentage 2 shutouts. Now, games 1 through 3 have not been good. So that's going to be interesting to monitor now that we know he's going to start game 1 at least in this series. The start of the series has been the rough part for Skinner, where for some reason mentally, he's not putting himself in the frame of mind to put himself in a spot to play as well as he does in game 4, game 5, game 6, game 7. In the critical games of the series, the last 2 years, he's been lights out for Edmonton in net. How can Edmonton get that from Stuart Skinner in game 1, game 2, and game 3 in this series when he's got an 800 save percentage, like 860 or something in game 1, game 2, and game 3 of a series in the last 2 years? That is a hard thing to fathom why it is, but he has had tough times early in the series. Now, can he change that this time around? That remains to be seen. The Edmonton Oilers, too, their blue line. Can't say enough about the effort and the contributions they got in the first 2 rounds and how they got better. That whole group, we saw a nightmarish start to the playoffs for Bouchard and for Nurse. They've gotten better as the playoff, not making the mistakes anymore. The turnovers, the positioning's been better. Kulak's been terrific. Wallman's been strong. Klingberg has even been a solid, sturdy guy for them, and I never would have said that. And now with these guys playing with good confidence after the Vegas win in the second round, now they're about to get Matthias Ekholm likely back in this series as well. The guy that we thought they would really be in trouble without Matthias Ekholm in these playoffs on the blue line. And now he's closing in on a return. He will not be back for game 1 and 2, according to Chris Knobloch. That has been confirmed. But at some point in the series, we may be looking at Matthias Ekholm returning for the Oilers. So, again, there's a lot to like with Edmonton. And the mental component. This is a team that got to the Stanley Cup final last year, lost in a heartbreaking Game 7. They look like a team on a mission, zoned in to get back there and get it done this time around. That's kind of that's the way their play has gotten better and better, and they look like they're in a zone. They're getting snappy with the media, talking about, what do you think of the improvements defensively? McDavid and Draisaitl were both asked that the last 2 days, and they both snapped, saying, I don't know why we have to keep answering this. We think we are a good defensive team. Now, they have had their miserable moments defensively. I think it's fair to say that the question's fair because they have had some nightmare defensive games, especially early in the LA series. But they're sick. They believe in their core that they can be a good defensive team and they can keep the puck out of the net. And obviously back-to-back shutout wins for Stuart Skinner and the Oilers against Vegas, can prove that. So hard as fuck to make a case against them, but it's equally hard as fuck for me to make a case against the Dallas Stars. They are a team that you talk about the motivation for Edmonton. How about the motivation for Dallas? They're now in the Western Conference Final for a 3rd straight year. And what, you think they're going to want to lose to the same team in the Western Conference Final 2 years in a row? Not a chance. They are going to want that. And yes, Klingberg against his old team, the team he started his career with, the Dallas Stars. Yes, a nice little under-the-radar story in this series. For Dallas, you love a lot of their game right now. Miro Heiskanen got better and better as that series went on against Winnipeg. Where you saw him get more minutes, more ice time, and start to look like the Miro Heiskanen of old. Thomas Harley, can't say enough. Amazing contributions. A legit, I think now, number 1 caliber defenseman. Lindell, Ceci, Leon Bischel, Alex Petrovic. They've all been outstanding. And as of right now, it's starting to look like, based on potential. Now, they've kept 11-7 with the alignment. 11 forward, 7 defensemen. The last couple games of that Dallas-Winnipeg series, Peter DeBoer. But I'm seeing 12-6 right now. And that Ilya Lyubushkin might be the odd man out for game 1 on Wednesday night. I'm seeing Harley, Heiskanen, Lindell, Ceci, Bischel, and Petrovic. Petrovic being kept ahead of Lyubushkin. Very interesting. But Petrovic's played a whale of a playoffs so far for the Dallas Stars. So I think it's splitting hairs. I don't think it's a needle mover. If Peter DeBoer sits Petrovic instead of Lyubushkin, I don't think it's a huge needle mover. I don't think it's a huge needle mover if he plays Petrovic instead of Lyubushkin either. And I think Petrovic has, earned it, as I think he's been really, really good. quite on. And it would have been unfortunate to see him come out of the lineup because he didn't really deserve to come out. But if they're going to go back to 6 defensemen, someone's got to come out for the Dallas Stars. And as of right now, it's looking like it could be Ilya Lyubushkin. And up front, the Finnish 5 have been, Finnish 4 up front, plus Finnish 5 if you include Lindell on the blue line. But Granlund, Rantanen, Hintz, they've been awesome. Wyatt Johnston's awesome as well up front. He's been great. They do need a little bit more from some other guys, though. Jason Robertson, no goals since he's come back. Tyler Seguin, Mason Marchment, Matt Duchene. They really didn't chip in a whole lot offensively in that series against Winnipeg. That's got to change here because Edmonton is getting depth scoring, or at least in the last round they did. Maybe this changes. Maybe Dallas shuts off the depth offense for the Oilers, but the Oilers were getting goals from Connor Brown and Kasperi Kapanen and Kane. And Frederick scored a key goal for them. And Corey Perry's always capable. It's not just the Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, Nugent Hopkins show anymore. Not what we saw in the last round. So if Edmonton is going to get depth scoring in this series, Dallas got to get Seguin going. Dallas has got to get Marchment going. Duchene going. Jason Robo's got to find something offensively. Because you can't just pin it all on Rantanen and Hintz and Granlund. And those guys, and Wyatt Johnston, who I think has shown himself as bona fide offensive difference maker. If Edmonton's going to keep getting depth scoring contributions as they did against Vegas in this series, it's going to be up to Dallas to get those same contributions from guys other than Mikko Rantanen, guys other than Roope Hintz, guys other than Wyatt Johnston in this series. That's important. This is a hell of a series. I got to admit, I'm going to be totally honest with everybody. I'm a little bit more into this series than I am the other. I think this series is going to be absolutely off the charts. I love the history that these two teams for back-to-back years are playing each other in the conference final. Edmonton so desperately wanting to get back to the final and win it. Dallas desperately trying to get over the hump and finally get to a final and beat the team that knocked them out last year in the West Final. Buckle up. I think this is going to be one hell of a series. I am not taking this. I'm going to make a pick. Obviously, I'm going to pick the series. That's just totally a chicken shit move on my part, not even making a pick. I'm not making a bet on the series price at this current. Plus, I've got Dallas futures. If anything, I would bet Edmonton here to hedge a little bit of the Dallas futures that I have to win the West and the Cup. But I'm not going to do that because I'm going to pick Dallas. I'm going to have faith. The Dallas Stars win this series. And it's not going to be easy, but I'm going to stick with it, with the Dallas Stars. Wouldn't shock me if Edmonton wins. But the way Dallas has got it going, they've got the home ice advantage. They got their Game 1 doldrums out of the way. They finally won a Game 1 against Winnipeg as well. And I just think the way Jake Ottinger is going right now, man, this guy right now is locked in at a level that is right now off the charts. You see some of the saves he made, too, in that Winnipeg Game 6 on Saturday. Just absolutely phenomenal stuff. No question about that. This is a tough series, like I said. But I've got the Cup futures, the West futures on Dallas. We'll see how this series starts. I'll tell you what, if Edmonton gets to plus money, maybe I do a little mini hedge on the Oilers at plus money if they're trailing in this series. But I'm going to pick Dallas. I'm going to stick with the Stars. They finally get to the Stanley Cup final after 3 years in a row of getting to the Western Conference final. And we'll go with that. And I am going to sprinkle on the 6 games and 7 games in this series. 6 and 7 plus 200 in that range. One of them, if as long as it goes 6 or 7, we're profitable. So that's the approach for me. And I'm going to not bet Dallas to win the series, but pick Dallas to win the series because I've already got the Weston Cup futures. Why would I bet Dallas series price? No need. Great series, though. Cannot wait. Alex, Western Conference final.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Like you said, this is going to be a fun rematch. This has been great playoff history. I still think about the old 90s battles with these two teams, but now to see a brand new chapter with these two clubs, this is definitely going to be a fun hockey to watch throughout the series. And like I said, I'm pot committed on Dallas, where I have plus 220 if they win the West. So I basically have a better price for the series than I can get even betting Game 1 and series combo. That's plus 175. But I will take a little piece back on Dallas to win Game 1, Edmonton to win series, plus 340. Just a slight little hedge bet. And then on top of that, adds a 6-game, 7-game split, which you mentioned, plus 200 on both of those available at DraftKings. That's the best price around. If you're looking to bet the 6-game, 7-game split with Dallas and Edmonton, I would definitely shop around because you're seeing wide variances on prices. Most of the price you can get will be best available at DraftKings. I'm seeing plus 550 for Dallas, 4-2 at MGM and FanDuel. And I feel like that's the way Dallas can win this. Dallas in 6. That's my natural gut feel is that they can take Edmonton out in 6, and it's compliant on them getting those early wins though against Skinner. And that's the thing. If you can create that doubt in Skinner by getting that win in game 1, using your home ice advantage here in this series to maybe blitz him a bit, get him off of his game. That's really be a key to beat Edmonton. But Edmonton's played a lot of hockey over the last few years, as has Dallas. And this is one where I think if the longer it goes on, we can see the legs get a little heavier. I'd be really cautious of betting overs in this series moving forward. We usually love overs, but I think this could turn into an under series just off of the fact that we may not see those forwards exerting so much speed and skill. Everything might be a little bit more measured early in games. It might be more of a feel out process, and teams aren't going to take too many risks, and we're going to have to see cleaner play. These are two teams that if you give them power play chances, they can absolutely bury you. So this won't be where we might see hits galore in Carolina, Florida early. I think this is going to be a little bit more measured hockey at times. We're not going to see it be overly physical because these teams know they can't afford to put themselves in trouble in the penalty department. So definitely we'd be treading lightly with goals. Like Dallas to win this series. I do like Dallas to advance, but I will, like I said, have a little tiny piece to grab Dallas to win game 1, Edmonton to win series as a little hedge back on the previous plus 220 I have for Dallas to win the West. Ian, you muted.
Sorry about that. Couple props. I do have some props for this series. Wyatt Johnston, 2 goals or more, minus 140. I like that. Mikko Rantanen, 3 goals or more, minus 140. He's just that good. I mean, the 3 goals, he got it in one game, for the Winnipeg series. So, like I said, that's worth a look. And I'm going to give you 2 for Edmonton. If these lines hold, and as of now, I don't think Knobloch's adjusting them off the overtime win against Vegas, where he made the key switch to put, obviously, Troy Stetcher in, take Emberson out, and then put Kasperi Kapanen in and take Victor Arvidsson out. I think he's going to start the series with the same type of forward group. If he starts this series with Kapanen and Podkolzin alongside Leon Draisaitl on that second line, then this is just absolutely stupid value for just asking them to get 1 goal in this series for Edmonton out of Vasily Podkolzin at the plus price of, plus 120, and the overtime game-winning goal scorer of the Vegas series, Kasperi Kapanen, at minus 135. That's just insane value for them to just get 1 goal each, playing alongside, the second best player on the team by far, Leon Draisaitl, after Connor McDavid. You could say they're 1A, 1B, McDavid and Draisaitl. But if they're going to play with Draisaitl, like I said, if you play with a guy like that, a broomstick can score a goal often, playing alongside a player like that. So to be able to get those prices with Podkolzin and Kapanen, assuming they stay alongside Draisaitl here in the Western Conference Final, I think it's great value. Just to get a goal. We only need 1 goal out of Podkolzin, 1 goal out of Kapanen. And Kapanen scored the overtime winner in his first game, in the lineup. So I think that's great value there. Perlo, your thoughts on Oilers Stars?
Yeah, it's this is going to be a tough series for sure. I think with Podkolzin, Kapanen, you're going to see Perry move up. I think he's going to move things around quite a bit. But yeah, that is good.
Yeah, if things aren't working in a specific game, there'll be some tweaks. They'll move Perry up. They might move Brown up. Exactly. You could see that. Yep.
But honestly, I should have messaged you beforehand. I thought we were possibly going to be doing this tomorrow before the game, this series. But so I'll
give thoughts today. Yeah,
I'll give the props tomorrow on this because I haven't really delved in too deeply on it. But just the teams alone. So with the Edmonton Oilers, you go back. You and I both know that they probably don't beat LA if LA doesn't have a bonehead coach. We already know that. They probably don't beat LA, and they're probably not here right now.
They do have a
Then
bonehead coach, and they found their game since then. So
that's
it's a
right.
moot point
And,
at this
yeah,
point. Yeah.
they did find their game, but they played a Vegas team that didn't look right all year long. Like they
True.
just never looked right at all year long.
There's truth to
And
that. Yeah.
so the question you have to ask yourself, is this a really good team, or did they come up against some teams that were probably not, like, had some issues? Let's put it that way.
Good point.
And
One team
so
blew the
how
series,
good-
and Vegas was never as good as they've looked 2 years ago.
And they were
This-
beat up late too. Vegas was they were the walking wounded by the end of that series. So
by the end of that series,
very good
right?
very good point.
So how good is this team? You got a Dallas team that beat a Colorado team that had a lot of talent on it, but as I mentioned before, I think I made a big mistake because they moved a lot of parts in the regular season and they weren't really a team, right? But it took Dallas everything they could to beat them. And then in the last round, they have a Winnipeg team that is probably better than anything the Oilers faced, I think, so far. And they found the way to beat them as well. So now you've got this idea where Dallas has really played hard for 2 series. They've really had to play hard. And Edmonton probably has a little easier time of it. The question is, how good are both of these teams? Is Dallas, would Edmonton have beat? Somebody asked me, do you think Edmonton would have beat Colorado in the first round if they would have played Colorado and not LA? What do you guys think of that? Do you think Edmonton would have beat Colorado in the first round, or do you think they would have pooched out in the first round against Colorado?
It would have gone 7.
I'm
would've
not
gone
selling
7.
Edmonton that short, Perlo. I'm not.
I'm not
Because-
selling them short because you're going to be surprised here. After I'm saying all that, I'm not selling them short. I'm just saying these are the questions I had to ask myself.
Yep.
And when I came right down to it, I'm seeing Robertson not putting up points. You mentioned Duchesne isn't really putting up points.
Yep.
Robertson obviously is not doing as well. That second line, I'm not seeing it from Sagan, really. These guys are playing as a team, but they're having a very difficult time getting depth scoring out of that.
I'll be honest, Perlo, if they don't get something from those guys, Edmonton will win the series.
They're not winning this series.
Those guys got to step up and give a little
So
something.
I have to ask myself, will they do it against this Edmonton team now all of a sudden? Because they haven't did it up until now. And looking at it both ways, what I've seen out of Edmonton, when it came right down to it, they were able to shut down Vegas. You mentioned with the defense with Edmonton is playing out of their heads. It's playing absolutely fantastic. What Coffey has done with that D, unbelievably, I think for D-men compared to D-men in this series, I actually am taking Edmonton as a better D-men. I'm taking Dallas with the better goaltending, and I'm taking Edmonton with the better depth scoring, which I never thought I would say. But Kane is playing unbelievable. Henrique is coming up when they need to. They're getting points from that third line. If they can get something out of Podkolzin and Kapanen in there, or they can move things around and change things up. If things aren't really working, they can put McDavid. Knobloch can put McDavid and Draisaitl up on that top line and beat them that way. So
DeBoer kind of
after
got
everything I
outmaneuvered
said-
by Knobloch last year, and DeBoer's going to have to make some calculated moves in this series because Knobloch's proven he can do that and do that with great
I
success.
am not selling Edmonton short because I'm taking Edmonton to win the series.
Yeah.
I think after everything I looked at,
I like how he started with all this concern about Edmonton, and then at the end,
I
he
do have
says,
concern, and I
I'm
don't think
not
this
going that
series
way."
is a slam dunk. I think Dallas can win it, but you're asking me, and I put my dollar on it. I have put my dollar on it. I'm taking Edmonton to win this series. It's not huge. It's certainly not 5 units like I took Florida over Toronto or anything like that. But I did take Edmonton to win the series, and I like your 6 and 7. I like that too. I cannot see this.
That's what I
being
like.
blown
6
on
and
either
7.
side.
Long one. Good
I
one.
can't see
I'm
this
still-
being blown either way.
I'm still trying to figure the where you actually made the U-turn here, because you said that you made a very good point about how Edmonton got through an LA team that was actually kicking their ass until their coach fucking lost it, and then they gave up the series. And then it was a beaten up Vegas team that just ran out of steam and really didn't even deserve to be in the second round. But
Right.
then now you have a battle-tested Dallas and
Mhm.
Winnipeg, who's gone through arguably two of the better Western Conference teams, and now Edmonton can beat Dallas because blank.
Okay, I'll finish what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
finishing. I'm not finishing. You're making me say
There's
more.
no doubt Dallas has had a murderer's row
That's a
pathway.
great question, and I asked this in my head the whole time I was doing this too.
No,
But
right, and well, no, and that's what I'm. Yeah, I want to hear the lead up.
I'm actually leaning on Ian on this one.
Yeah.
I'm leaning on Ian on this one. When the ball started rolling,
Yeah.
Edmonton just got better and better and better. With Dallas, I saw a team that kind of slowly got worse. And
Okay.
and now I'm seeing some old legs and Sagan and Ben and all that stuff like that.
I get that. Ben's
And-
too.
Okay,
he's
I
gonna
get
step
you.
up
All right.
offensively.
And you got
Yeah,
an
yeah,
Alvarez
yeah.
who's smart enough to put these fresh legs in there, and I don't see the fresh legs coming for Dallas. So
Okay,
at the end
okay.
of this battle, and it's going to be a battle because I think Dallas as a team, as a unit, as a family is amazing, and they're not going to give up an inch, and they're going to fight all the way through. I just don't think it's going to be enough. I think they're a little too old, and I think Dallas will eventually
Long
get
in the
through.
tooth
Also,
and
I want to mention this series and this playoffs and last playoffs, but this last playoffs, I think McDavid has come out to be one of the greatest leaders we have ever seen. He is doing amazing things, building up each individual player on that team, and they are
He's
better.
grown as a leader. I agree with
He
that.
is not just the best player on the ice right now. I think he's one of the best leaders we have ever seen right now, and I think you're really going to see it in this series.
I'm not there yet on that declaration, but
And that, you
he's
know
grown.
what I've been saying about Edmonton all year.
Yeah.
So this is a lot for me, but I'm sold. I'm sold, and I think Edmonton makes it through.
I applaud that they look determined. They look like they're heads down
Yeah.
and determined to, erase the heartbreak of last year and get back there and finish the job this year.
And that's the thing. Anything short of this is a disappointment. You had to get back here if you're Edmonton. You had to get back here, and you really have to win the series. Anything short of this.
The only way to
disappointment.
erase last year, Alex, is win the cup this year or at some point with this group. Yeah.
I think no. I think even just getting back to the cup, because it's hard as hell to go. Remember what they did, down 3-0 in the cup final, come back, force a game 7 and lose. To even get back to this point, there's hardly any teams who've done that before. You'd have to go way back in the history to find just to get to this point of a stratosphere. So to get back to the cup final, it would be enough. I wouldn't say call it a failure if they get back and lose again, because just to get back after what they did last year is an accomplishment enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, I will say I think Dallas's top 3 D are better though, and that could be an issue. Like they're top Lindell.
There's more top end defensive.
Yeah. And the
Dallas
goaltending edge. And the
And
goaltending edge.
edge.
And here's the thing: we talk about the split of Skinner early and late. Ottinger's the better goaltender early. Dallas is a team that you can't spot them 2 games at home. You can't spot them 3 games. So that gives you an edge there too.
Yeah, I just think there's a couple games here where Edmonton's going to dominate Dallas, and then the rest of them are going. The rest of them are going to be like going into overtime. That's what I think is going to happen. There's going to be a couple where Edmonton just dominates them, and hopefully they're early.
There were times they held back. Now again, is this Vegas bad or Edmonton good? But how many periods in the last few games of that series, Edmonton holding Vegas to 0-1, 2 shots for a whole period?
Yeah,
that blue line without Ekholm on it, it's unreal that's the kind of defensive play they got in that series without Ekholm. But it shows you they got confidence from coming back to beat LA, and the confidence just blossomed into something even greater against Vegas.
If you feel this is going to be a long series, a long, tight contested series with some overtimes, you can get plus 750 for 3 games to go to OT, plus 2,000. 20-1. Yeah, plus 2,000 for 4 games or more to go past overtime.
Yeah. And this could be a series with multiple overtime games.
I think you'll see more of them in the other series, though, too. I think we're going to have a long It's going to be
I think
long.
it's a great series.
That's
Like
it.
I
That's it.
I
Some-
cannot
yeah.
wait for this series. And look, I hope
Yeah.
Florida Carolina is great, and I'm excited about that series too. I've got my I've got the possibility open, the door open for that series to be really good and potentially great as well. But I have full confidence this is going to be a great series.
This matchup's the A side,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way a little bit, no doubt. And the fact it's back-to-back years, the same two teams in the West Final, it should lead to one hell of a series. All right, game one specifically tonight with Florida, Carolina. We got Carolina minus 125 home favorites, 5.5 the total. I'm just going to reiterate what I like because we've talked a lot about the series so far. Carolina minus 125 tonight in game one. Now I've got half on just Carolina to win tonight, half on Carolina game one win and Florida series combo at plus 310, plus 320. So that's what I've done. But I like Carolina to take game one. System play. And this is the system. Teams trying to avenge a playoff series loss 2 years ago to the same opponent. We've seen this twice already. Toronto beat Florida, game one, second round. Edmonton beat Vegas, game one, second round. Those teams are 2-0 in game ones, trying to avenge a series loss from 2 years ago. And that system says bet Carolina here, who got swept 2 years ago by the Florida Panthers in the Eastern Conference Final. I think that fuels Carolina too. Not only do you catch Florida off the 7 games, but you got Carolina got swept 2 years ago in 4 straight games. There's that extra onus we can't get behind in this series right off the shoot. We got to take game one. Let's play with the lead in this series and then put some pressure on them. We can't get behind again after getting swept. That's a great angle. I think Carolina is hungry big time for this game one tonight. Not that Florida is, but I think, they're going to maybe catch Florida a little bit physically, just down slightly after the Toronto series. So Carolina for me in game one. And I'm going to go with the over by Fecta, but I got to admit, we're going to keep this a smaller over by Fecta than normal because I do think as this series goes on, it will be lower scoring. But look, Florida, we saw 2 game ones in the first 2 rounds. First period over hit, full game over hit. Their defensive game was not totally locked in. Bobrovsky was not phenomenal in either game one either, especially in the Toronto series. They gave up goals in that first game on the road against Toronto. So I think this series will be low scoring for the most part, but I think tonight is the night we do see some goals. So over by Fecta and Carolina tonight for me here in game one. Alex, game one, Florida, Carolina.
So like I said, I'm on that, Carolina to win game one, Florida to win series plus 310. I will sprinkle a small bit on Carolina regulation plus 140. Like I said, it has to be a kind of a soul cleanse of a game for Carolina. It's been 2 straight conference finals where they've gotten swept, and they've heard that ad nauseum. We'll probably hear that all night on the broadcast. They need to get a win in the conference final just to exercise that demon alone, and then to do it against Florida, the team you faced last when you were in that position, will certainly be the onus there. I like Carolina to jump out, use that crowd to their advantage. I like them early and often in this spot. I would maybe sprinkle in the team total there as well. The over by factor, like I said, treading lightly, and that's something I'll be looking for live. We already have plus money prices, so I get plus 125, and I'm seeing good pace with the first period over. I'll go with that. If I'm seeing a 4.5 or 5.5 at plus 150, I might sprinkle with that, but I got to see where the pace of play is going. If this is a little bit more measured out, like I said, I expect physicality. Maybe the refs try and tame things down, and we see some penalties, some 4-on-4 opportunities that open up the ice. So this is going to be a great live wagering series as far as totals go, because I think there could be some games where maybe we see some early scoring, and then that gives us some value to bet the under as we see things slow down, something we like to do here and there during the regular season. This is the time of year where I really like to do that, where I might go the first period over and then come back and bet that full game under.
All right, there you go. Good approach there. All right, Perlo, game one, Eastern Conference Final.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. I wasn't even thinking about they were, they got shut out last year, and that was really tight. Like that was one of the tightest sweeps I ever saw. There was a lot of games there that could have went either way, and it was close. But the fact was they were swept, and that's another. They've had 10 days now to look at tape for the Panthers. It's not just the rest; it's also the tape. I don't think rust is going to be a problem here. I don't have the stats here, but I do believe that Carolina in the last 3 years has been one of the best teams with rest in the league, whether it be in the regular season or otherwise. So I don't think you're going to see rest. I trust Brendan Moore to have these guys ready here. So I'm going to go. I also have them to win the first period in the series. My biggest bet here, though, actually is Panthers team total under 2.5. If they are going to have the legs that they are, I think the Panthers are going to have a very difficult time getting the puck through this game. And Carolina may just realize that and just shut them down, period. Anyways, it may not score as much as you think, but I do think they will probably pot a couple for sure. But I think the Panthers might have a tough time here as they get their legs moving early. Is a little tired from the last round, a little bit of hangover from the last round. It was a pretty emotional for them series. Like, they usually aren't affected by emotions too much, but I like the Panthers team total under 2.5. You can get that at -110. I like the Hurricanes money line first period at -145 and puck line at +160. Put about half on that and a quarter on the +160. I got the Hurricanes money line full game, and I took the Hurricanes. You could get team total over 2.5 at -155. I could see a 3-0 game here. I could see it 3-1, 3-0, something like that. I could also see a 4. But I do think the Hurricanes should be able to pot 3. So I took all those bets, split it up with 2 units, and we'll see how they go. Also, I got a little bit of a prop here. I like Jarvis over shots, over 2.5 shots. As long as he's on that top line with Svech and Aho, he gets over those shots consistently all the time. And I like Hall over 1.5 shots. He just hits over 1.5 shots all the time. You get that at -157 at DK. It's about a 90% play, so it's a good play to play.
You mentioned the team total for Carolina, and yet primarily the bigger bet for me is money line, where I don't have to worry how many goals they score, just win the game. But I did dabble in, and I did like a soccer type of bet. You know how soccer you can bet over 2.5 and 3 goals? It's like a split bet. Soccer totals. That's kind of what I did here. I did a little over 2.5 -145 at BetMGM with the Hurricanes team total, and a little over 3 +110.
I like that too.
BetMGM with the team
BetMGM. Yeah, I'm going to throw that in there too. That's good. Yeah, I like that
for the Hurricanes. And before we wrap it up, one mate change tonight. I think Florida's got the exact same lineup as Game 7, which doesn't surprise me one bit. No changes for Paul Maurice, but no Jalen Chatfield tonight for the Carolina Hurricanes on the blue line. Scott Morrow is going to draw in here to the lineup. Now, this is a guy that's played with the Wolves in the American Hockey League, so make sure you're aware of that. And he's played solid down there, and he's going to be playing in the third pair. And he's a guy he's played well down there. So, and I think he fits their system really well. And they'll miss Chatfield, but like I said, I think for one game, how many times have we seen, at least for one game, someone come into the lineup, step up, play pretty solid? I could see that being the case here for Scott Morrow tonight. Great stuff. Shout out to everyone in the chat. We appreciate it. A little longer show, but again, we had series to preview, recaps to do, and we wanted to give you a good, thorough analysis of these conference finals. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much, and we sure hope that you join us for our Betcasts the next 2 nights. Not tonight, but tomorrow night and Thursday night, 2 Betcasts back-to-back. We got Game 1, Western Conference Final, Edmonton, Dallas, Patreon exclusive live Betcast tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern. And then Thursday night, it's Game 2 of Florida, Carolina in the East, which will be free for all, open to everybody, that Betcast. To join us for the Dallas-Edmonton Betcast tomorrow on Wednesday night, make sure you become a Patreon member, $10 per month. Goalie charts, totals charts, as well as our daily betting card, sides, totals, player props posted each and every day on the page. $10 per month. Your subscription goes a long way to supporting the show and keeping it going long term. And we will have a lot of off-season stuff for you, daily cards and other sports during the time of the year when there's no NHL. Player suite interviews on the way during the off-season as well. So make sure you stay with us through the off-season months. Patreon.com/IceGuys.
Yeah, this week we will create the MLB chat That'll be the new room in our chats there at Patreon. So you can share any MLB plays or thoughts or tickets or what have you. And of course, like I said, Ian will be chiming in throughout the summer with those plays as well. Also want to check out the Ice Guys store, iceguys.myspreadshop.com. We've got all kinds of different merch in the store right now, shirts, caps, hoodies, mugs, you name it, we got it. It's a great time to shop, get something new for the summer right now at iceguys.myspreadshop.com.
Bargain bin special tonight and best bets coming up right after we hear from our great Ice Guys sponsors.
Support for the Ice Guys podcast is provided by Boston Hemp Incorporated, Tailgater Social, and a big thank you to all that subscribe to the Ice Guys Patreon page.
All right, shout out to all our great sponsors, including Boston Hemp Inc. Get 20% off all orders on the website using the promo code ICEGUYS at bostonhempinc.com. All right, bargain bin special of the night for our first night of conference final action. Game 1, Florida, Carolina. Alex, what do you like for bargain bin?
Yeah, we're just going to look at a guy who has been scoring quite a bit for Carolina since he made his trek to Carolina from the west side of Chicago. I'm going with Taylor Hall, plus 370 at DraftKings, anytime goal scorer. I think he gets on the board here tonight and start game 1 for Carolina.
I like it. And I like it. Taylor Hall for the Carolina Hurricanes, for Alex B. Smith with his bargain bin special of the night. Perlo, bargain bin special. What do you got?
Well, I had 2, and that was one of them. So, but I'm going to go with the guy who scored 2 in those last 4 games, and I talked about him earlier, and I bet him to get a goal in the series. And I think Florida could be chasing Carolina a little bit here. I think Carolina is going to come out full pace and possibly get a couple penalties doing so, in which case I like Gostisbehere to pot one, plus 700. Wow. He scores on the power play quite a bit. He's been scoring 5-on-5, not bad, and I like this game. So plus 700, I'll go Gostisbehere.
All right, there you go. Shane Gostisbehere. They go plus 800. As good of a price as you can look for. Cool. Yeah, absolutely terrific price. And I think it's worth a shot, no doubt, because I think defenseman scoring is definitely something to look at here in this series. I'll give you one bargain bin special for each team. I'm going to go with Anton Lundell for Florida at plus 500. Nice. Scored in Game 7 against Toronto. That whole line is just on a heater right now. Lundell, Kuhlman, Luostarinen, and Brad Marchand. So I will rock with Anton Lundell for Florida at plus 500. And for Carolina, I'll go with Jackson Blake at plus 400 at Bet365. Jackson Blake has had a pretty solid playoff for this team so far. And I like him maybe to get on the board here tonight. So there you go. Anton Lundell plus 500 and Jackson Blake plus 400. One bargain bin special from each team here tonight for Panthers and Hurricanes. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Final. All right, best bets. Alex, what do you like for best bet?
Yeah, we're going to go with that Carolina to win Game 1. They take the battle, but I think ultimately Florida wins the war. You can get that plus 310 at FanDuel. So Carolina wins tonight. Florida takes the series. Plus 310. That's my best bet.
All right, Carolina wins game 1, Florida the series. Combo plus 310 for Alex B. Smith with best bet. Perlo, best bet.
Oh, I'm going to take that Florida team total under a minus 110. I don't think they're going to score too many goals today, so I'll go with that as my best bet.
My best bet, here I am. Da, da, da. Rock you like a hurricane. Yeah, Carolina minus 125. This is their spot to win this one. I think they're in deep shit if they lose this game, quite honestly. Now, look, 1-0 series deficit's not the end of the world. But if the way I look at it, you got swept by these guys 2 years ago. You've got to have the onus to come out and say, we've got to start strong this time around. We've got this team coming in off 7 games in the last round. Let's get the job done. Let's take game 1. That's got to be the mindset. And like I said, Florida only gets stronger. If you're going to get Florida, get them early because they only get stronger as they wear you down physically the longer the series goes. So I think Carolina does take game 1. They've been awesome on home ice. Carolina minus 125 for my best bet here for game 1 with the Panthers.
Actually, I'll give one more. Sorry, I'm going to take Jarvis over 2.5 shots too. So I'll give you 2. All
right, another best bet. There you go. We're just giving out best bets here.
Yeah, exactly.
Jarvis.
I forgot. I was going to say that, and I forgot.
Good stuff. All right, great show. Long show, but great show. We appreciate all of you tuning in. Hit the like button on the way out. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. For Alex B. Smith and Perlo, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Tuesday night. Enjoy game 1 of the Eastern Conference Final and back tomorrow on Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern to tee up the West right here on the Ice Guys.